Gangers come in all shapes, sizes and walks of life. If the guardsman is one of billions, the ganger is one of trillions. Gangers are most famously known from the hive world Necromunda, and while a lot of the examples of models and artwork I will showcase in this video come from the lore books of this incredible gang-based tabletop wargame, there are countless hive worlds with their own gangs and hierarchies to consider. The Gilead system, the system that features in Wrath and Glory, even has its own hive worlds brimming with potential gangs. Gangers don't even need to come from hive worlds specifically. Criminal organisations and even just a collective of individuals come together just to survive a common place on any of the countless planets of the known universe. Gangs are wildly different from one another, just as their individual members are too. Some are expert shooters, well-established pit fighters, charismatic liars and swindlers, or just lucky scavengers looking for their next trove of parts to sell. I'd strongly suggest looking at the Necromunda lore books and rulebooks for inspirations on the types of gangs and cultures they hail from. That's not to say that you need to pick these as your gang, but there might be some parallels that can inspire you. Necromunda is a popular ask for a campaign setting for Wrath and Glory by fans. It's a hive world brimming with characters, gangs and environmental dangers. It's a tabletop skirmish game, and one of the originals. Recently, it has had a resurgence with new rules, lore, terrain and even miniatures. It has some of the more characterful models from any of the game's workshop ranges, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for some conversion pieces or even to use to play. The setting is usually in Hive Primus, the biggest of hives on Necromunda, surrounded by the Ash Wastes and the Sump Sea. The gangs are built and balanced around their own theme, from zealots to hulking, chem-addicted butch forge workers, to chaos cults and even gene stealer cults. There's something for everyone here. Gangs can accrue power, territory and weapons as they progress, and you can hire mercenaries and even buy pets to aid you in your scenarios. I can totally understand why people want a campaign setting here, and it's even on my to-want list too. Reading and flicking through the gang and lore books gives you a helpful insight to the hierarchies of a gang and gang lifestyle. For instance, Escher, an all-female matriarchal gang of poison brewers and badasses, specialise in raining lasgun fire and taking out opponents with superior agility with their poison stiletto blades or chem throwers. However, on the flip side, they can be hot-headed and therefore lose their cool, or even bottle it if the leader is taken down. Whether this is to strike at a more opportune moment or because of the jitters remains to be seen. The archetype ability of the ganger is Scrounger. This ability gives you plus rank dice to cunning tests. It also enables you once per session to take an influence or cunning test to acquire an item to represent something you have prepared in advance. This latter ability is interesting. You're already granted an influence test to acquire war gear per session anyway, limited of course to availability and where you are located, so I'm assuming this is simply an extra chance at acquiring something else. You're spoilt for choice when it comes to starting gear, being granted a knife or a sword and then either a las pistol, auto pistol, hand cannon or stubber for a ranged choice. It's always good to consider packing a stim or two as well, and possibly a respirator to help you survive the fumes of the bottom levels of a hive. For talents, consider an augmetic to represent the hardships you've been through in the hive. Another talent to consider is Die Hard to represent your survivability. This lets you avoid the dying condition if you've suffered one wound more than your max. Dirty Fighter is another good choice, allowing you to apply an extra condition if you can shift 2 exalted icons upon a successful interaction attack. Gallows Humour allows you to make a grim joke as a coping mechanism for an injury. You and any allies recover shock equal to your rank plus number of icons rolled on a successful fellowship test. Hive Explorer gives you plus rank die to any stealth or survival checks whilst in an urban environment. There are an incredible amount of models for gangers thanks to the Necromunda range, and some of them would make suitable desperados or scabbies, so look out for those in a future video as well. Seen here are the Escher gangers, warrior women who specialise in toxins and agility. These are the Goliaths, brutes who rely on their strength instead of guiles. Here are the Orlocks, the mining and processing gang of Hive Primus, also part of the Necromunda range. Caldor are a little more fanatical, but some of their models make for excellent scavengers down on their luck. I think these would make excellent members of the Bone Pickers gang mentioned on the Moon Daedalon in the Adventure Graveyard Shift. Van Saar are the more well-equipped of the Underhive and offer some unique and capable looking models for a ganger, including a lot of rad weapons. Next we have the Delac. These guys are built more for espionage. There are a lot more in the Necromunda range, but more recently there are outlaw models, a new box of miniatures for a more general description in the Underhive. These guys are less affiliated with a specific gang and therefore make excellent vanilla style gangers or even denizens of a hive. Keep an eye out for the Desperado and Scabby videos in the future, as these will have more specialised character models from the Necromunda range that may also overlap to what you are looking for in a model. A ganger has fought their way to where they are today. Whether born into nobility and fallen, or born into poverty and fought your way up, you're a hardy or wily denizen of a hive world, and your main goal is survival. It might have made you untrusting of others, or untrustworthy yourself, or it might have made your humour dark and inappropriate. There are a ton of suitable worlds to come from if you're playing in a Gilead system adventure. In particular, Daedalon, the graveyard moon of Gilead Primus from the free adventure Graveyard Shift, features the grisly graze robbers called Bone Pickers, and I could see someone of a ganger, scabby or desperado archetype hailing from this kind of background nicely. These grave robbers find, repurpose and resell their wares in the markets of Baristir. Maybe you've managed to afford a lift off the moon. Reign of Mercy, another free adventure, features rival gangs called the Deluge and the Waterbringers. These gangs found in Morncleft on the planet Enoch identify themselves with glowing tattoos called skin plants. This would be a unique way to add some identity to your character. There are 2 other hive worlds in the Gilead system, and until we get more lore-based books, we aren't quite sure how these gangs identify themselves. Still, it doesn't stop you from creating your own gang and accompanying rituals or quirks. These hive worlds are Charybdion and Gilead Primus. Charybdion features in the previous edition's adventure book Dark Tides, and in particular the adventure Descent, where players have to traverse Hive Adon. You could pull some decent inspiration from this. The gang featured here is the Piscator Gang, a group of individuals who wear yellow waders to farm the algae for food and repurpose anything that gets lost or sent down Hive. You might still represent your gang and have solid ties, or you may have cut all ties and left them for dead to seek opportunities elsewhere. This could make a valuable plot hook for your DM, so be sure to come up with a solid backstory. Being a ganger comes with some great roleplay opportunities to build upon. You could be a snivelling coward who has survived because they have avoided conflict, a hardened and foul-mouthed brute who has killed their way to the top, or a clever and cunning trader who has had a lucky break, or anything in between. The choice really is yours.